On this segment of the Chundria Standback Show, my special guest expert is Dr. Ryeal Sims, who's a licensed and certified relationship coach. He talks in depth on the science to finding Mr. or Mrs. Right and gives excellent tips for singles from a scientific perspective. Hey, it's Chundria, and I am so excited to have my special guest today, Dr. Ryeal Sims, the relationship doctor. He is the expert of all experts, and he's here today. We're going to talk about the science to finding Mr. or Mrs. Right. How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
Now tell me, how long have you been a relationship expert?
Maybe 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Longer.
Okay. And how does something like this come to be? You just set out to help people, to educate people?
It all started off in Chicago. As
my hometown.
As a vocalist. I was singing in a group, and we had to write songs and dance songs, but I was always writing love songs. And people were like, "Oh man, why are you always writing this love stuff?" You know. And then later on, I got into the film industry, and I was always interested in the love-themed type films. And people were telling me, "Wow, you're pretty good. You know, you should really talk more about relationships." So I decided to go back to school.
Wow.
And became a facilitator. Then I became a relationship coach, certified. And that wasn't enough, because I wanted to know a little bit more about why we do what we do from an eco-bio-psychosocial and spiritual point of view. So I went back to school again for psychology, and then that wasn't enough. Went back, and then went back again. And so here I am. I wanted to know, I specialize in neuropsychology.
Okay.
So I talk about why we do what we do, and what's going on in the brain, and biology too as well. So I think it's very imperative to understand those things, because it brings it full circle about relationships, you know. And I talk about relationships in general too, but I think it's very important to understand why we do what we do.
And I agree. I feel like there are so many relationship experts out there, but what I love about what you do is that you do break down the science of it. You do break, I mean, you and I had a conversation about the science of even kissing and how much is involved in that. So I knew that this was a different spin of knowledge for people in general. So as you know, I've brought in quite a few singles to just ask some questions about their love languages and their types, and because so many people want to find Mr. and Mrs. Right, and what is the science of finding that person, on a physiological level, mental level, so many different areas. What is that? So my first question for you is, what's the easiest way for singles to get out of their own way? I feel like sometimes we overthink things. Sometimes we're set in a way that what is the easiest way?
Yeah, I think one thing is very important in general. I think it's very important for people first to take out time to know self, and also to make sure that you're detoxed from your last relationship, and that's very, very important. Once you're detoxed from the other person, then take that opportunity to get to know self, right? And knowing self is understanding your non-negotiable requirements, your needs, and then your wants. Because for a while we've been taught our wants. And I want a man or I want a woman that's so beautiful, have a nice body, or a man that's making 6 figures, got a car, house, and all that. But actually, those are material things,
right.
And those are also. We look at the woman, and that's a good thing too, though, if she's beautiful.
To be physically attracted to her.
Physically attractive. But the thing is that we have to really understand what it is that we're really looking for. And that's when you take out that time to actually know what your non-negotiable requirements are and what your needs are. And just for a quick example, I usually use, if you're making a meatloaf, and whatever the meat is, if you take away the meat, can you still make the meatloaf? No, but most people try to. Most people still try to make a meatloaf without that meat.
Right.
So let's put the meat back. And so we put the meat, and we put all of my ingredients together and everything, and we got all that together. And now I need heat, right? So I get the heat, put it in the oven, and it's done. Now it's dealing with your wants, because you can put whatever you want on top of the meatloaf.
Right.
You can put turkey gravy, mustard,
barbecue sauce
on, and those are your wants. But your non-negotiable is that meat.
Right.
You know, can you take that meat away? You know, you're not. So understand what your non-negotiables are. But in order to understand what your non-negotiables are, you got to understand who? Self. So you take out that time. That's the beauty of being single, is taking out that time and getting to know somebody else. Getting to know yourself,
right.
which is that somebody else that didn't really realize. Because a lot of people are like, what is knowing yourself, right? Or people saying, I love myself. So I usually ask them, what does that mean? You know, how do you measure that? How do I know that you love yourself?
Right.
You know, so you have to get to that point of loving self. Yeah, and that's very important.
Very important, because you're right, it starts with you. Before you can pursue anything with anyone else,
Yeah.
you have to take care of home.
Take care of home. And, you know, knowing self is also, you're more mindful of what's going on when you're trying to meet somebody. You're more mindful of what's happening with your body. Now, scientifically, there's a thing when we meet each other, it's actually, you're actually smelling each other, actually, and it's our DNA, our immune system, right?
Right.
And it's something that also called the major histocompatibility complex, and that is the opposite match. Like a lot of people say, well, you know, it's really a debate whether. I'm trying to think of one of the sayings when people say, oh well, no. Opposite doesn't match, or opposite attracts, but actually it's the opposite match. It's a match. It is a match when it's opposite. Our DNA is not really looking for the same type of DNA. It's looking for the opposite DNA. Just, you know, and for that reason too, is when you have a child, it's less defect in the kid, right? So you have to watch out for that, you know. And sometimes we're just interested in the symmetry of the person, but we have to really pay attention to our spirit, and that's part of the construct. That's part of the component of a spirit, is paying attention to our major histocompatibility complex, how that person is making me feel when I'm right there next to that person, right? And that's so important. But the only way that you can know that, those are the things you. But in order to pay attention to that, you got to know self. You got to go out there and you got to feel. You have to feel, not just because, oh my God, he's so handsome. Oh my God, she's so fine. You know, you have to. It's more than that.
More than the physical, it's how you feel, what you think about it, etc. No, that makes perfect sense. Makes a lot of
absolutely.
sense. So then the next I'll say is a lot of us have a certain type of, like, and this goes right into what you're saying about being instantly attracted to someone physically, you know, but a lot of us have a certain type that we prefer in our ideal mate. So how does that idea prevent people from moving toward their ideal mate when you're locked to the physical, or you're locked by education? Like, I want somebody that's got this degree, I don't want somebody that's family oriented. Like, you're picking these single a la carte characteristics of individuals, when I imagine that really hasn't gotten people very far.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it could limit you. You know, there's nothing wrong with having that list of knowing what you don't want, right? It's a good thing to figure out, well, you know, I want this type of guy, or I want this type of woman. But you still have to be careful with that too as well, you know, because it can limit you. You know, somebody may not have all of those on that list that you have. You know, they might have the potential. And I think that's what's really good. Yeah, you're so right.
Now, from a scientific perspective, how do we find our happily ever after?
Well, it's part of what I said earlier. You know, just paying more attention to self, understanding self, and understanding what's happening with how someone is making you feel.
So once you've found yourself, you've repaired that, you've identified, what you need to identify yourself, then the next step for you is, in finding your happily ever after, is do you align with someone who is like-minded?
That's right. That's right. Someone, now, you know, yes, of course, we talk about social compatibility, right? If somebody, I'm a lawyer, you're looking for a lawyer, you know, and that's fine, you know. But again, it goes back to if they have some of the non-negotiable requirements that you need, your wants and everything, You know, what I tell women too, that you're the employer. Us men, we're interested in trying to get the job. So it's so important.
Wow, I've never heard that. I
Yeah,
like that.
so it's so important for you to, that's why it's so important as a woman, you know, to understand that you're the employer. So you have to understand who you're hiring, right? So in order to understand who you're hiring, you have to know your business. You have to know the kind of company that you just started, right?
Right.
So in order to know that, so that way you can ask the questions that is needed to ask, right? So I think that that's so important as well. And so yeah, so once you get all of that together, you pretty much, you know, you're ready to go out there.
You're
ready
in the
to,
right direction now. Now
in
you
the
can
right
actually
direction.
propel as opposed
Because you know what to ask.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people don't know what to ask, really, because they don't know self. They don't know their business. You know, so they don't really, they're asking general questions that somebody else would ask, right? But they're asking general questions with, you know, your girlfriend would ask or your guy friend would ask. But what would you ask? And the reason why you're doing that is because you don't know self.
you don't know exactly what you want.
What you
so
want.
You're keeping the conversation general.
That's right, you're keeping it very general.
You would save a lot of time wasted if you did that. So that makes perfect sense.
And you know, the more you know yourself, your body will definitely help when I from the science point of view, because it'll sense what you're looking for. It could sense what you're looking for. And remember when I mentioned, the minute you go close to a person, that major histocompatibility complex, because that's what we do. We sense a person first. We smell the person, and our DNA is saying, hey, is that the same DNA or is that an opposite match? Because that's the key, the opposite match. That's the key. We're not opposite match.
And we think opposites attract in a negative sense, but it's actually right.
Yeah, you have some people arguing about it, you know, saying, oh, well, no, it's not opposite, you know, it's the same. But what they're talking about is social compatibility. I'm a lawyer, you're a lawyer, you know, but when we're talking about biology, the body is always looking for the opposite. It's not looking for the same. For birth defects, because if it says, the body says, if we have a child, we want to make sure that this child is a perfect child, and the same DNA, you're not going to get that, you know. So the body itself is working on its own,
right?
You know, and it's like, no, this is not my match.
So my last question is, what defines true love, and why does it feel so unattainable at times? And I speak to the person that doesn't know how to find themselves, that struggles with sitting down and getting to the core of what makes them tick, what makes them happy, what are they really looking for, what do they really need. Like you said, you have that meatloaf, we need the meat, the wants, the desires. I feel like sometimes we get so caught up in toppings, but we're not getting to the meat. So any solution for someone who even struggles with that first step? Yeah.
One thing we do have to understand is when it comes to in love, in love actually takes no effort. In love is really easy to happen. In love is something that we can do just in love at first sight. You know, in love is not something that's hard. True love is actually something that we have to put effort into.
And a lot of it.
And a lot of effort, because we don't have to put effort in falling in love. There's no effort.
You talked about the oxytocin.
Oh yeah, oxytocin, phenylethylamine, serotonin.
All those different hormones.
All those different.
And it'll give you the feeling that you are in love or that you are happy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's why we have to be careful too, being intimate really fast. Because when we're intimate really fast and we release the oxytocin, because the oxytocin is the bonding chemical. It actually bonds us together. So if a female is actually having a baby, or when she's having a child, she's also releasing oxytocin. That's what bonds the mother and child together, as well as breastfeeding too. So the bonding chemical, when we bond with the oxytocin, you think actually that you're in love, you know, but you're actually thinking about this person because, hey, this person actually released my oxytocin.
And that really has nothing to do with that.
And it has nothing to do with that person, it has nothing to do with the relationship. You don't even care about wanting to know more about that person. You know, all you know is he made you feel good,
Mhm.
or she made you feel
Right.
good, right?
Right.
Because as guys, we have a little oxytocin too as well, right? And that oxytocin will fool you and make you believe, you know, that you're actually in love.
Okay, well, I got some great takeaways today, and the main thing I can hear for people out there is to be true to yourself.
Be true to yourself.
Find what you want. The key to finding Mr. or Mrs. Right is to start with you first.
That's right.
Find you first.
Find yourself. It's the same. Am I saying? Respecting yourself
Mm-hmm.
is knowing yourself in order to love yourself.
Love it. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for coming today and talking to me. I
So
feel like
welcome.
you've been so great, giving such rich information. So, love to have you back sometime soon.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank
Absolutely.
you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.